Welcome to True Health Tuesday, and the truth will set you free. Truth is interesting. Okay, I got this. Tonight we're going to talk about innate intelligence. And there's an intelligence that you're born with inside, and there is actually a universal intelligence we're going to talk about. But I like this, and I got this off of Candace Owen. If you're not familiar with her, get familiar with her. Okay, and I put it in a picture form, so that's why it's a funky color. Experts told you if you complied with lockdown, censorship, masks, and vaccinations, life would return to normal. Remember that? 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Conspiracy theorists told you COVID was never going to end, and the government was going to use it to usher in a totalitarian new world order. Who do you believe now? Well, anyway, I'm just reading it off. I'm not saying anything about anything, okay? But the measure of intelligence is the ability to change. And that's what we got to do. We're going to change your mindset. Now, this is the list. It's growing exponentially. We had 2 more videos deleted last week. They're still, so please, if you're getting this information now, share what we got on YouTube. Share what we got on Facebook as much as you can, because God knows how long it's going to be on there. But also, it's on Odyssey. It's going to be on the Dr. B VIP. So please, those you out there, they demonetized us 2 years ago. They've shadow banned us about a year ago, and now they're deleting our videos. Anybody see the writing on the wall? Okay, sign up for Dr. B VIP, please. Help support us, okay? And Extreme Health Academy, amazing group, okay? And also, we've got courses on the Dr. B VIP for sleep, for education, for sovereignty. Get in there and learn, because learning is the only way that we can get power. With education is power. Wait, maybe that's why they got the censorship thing going. Okay, now in a couple of weeks, I'm going to be flying out to Thailand. And this is, doesn't that look kind of like Kim Jong-il at the bottom? It's like, hello, follow me. Okay, so this is one of the posters. It's just, I'm really excited to go there. I'm going to be, it's not really a vacation. I'm going to be adjusting people from 6 in the morning to 4 in the afternoon. And then knowing that it's around 95 degrees and humid, the first day I'm there, because remember, they're still COVID crazy there too. We're going to do an outdoor seminar in 95 degree weather with 90% humidity. And you get to wear masks, and it's limited to 60 people. So it's all outside, and that's day 1. And people are saying, wow, how lucky you're going on a vacation. There's like 5-6 people I know that are there, and honest to God, if you knew how beautiful their souls were, you'd risk, the whole testing, the quarantine, the shut down of internet. You'd be risking it too for them. If I don't make it back, send a file and a cake, I'll be at some kind of jail over there. Maybe they haven't seen old American movies, Now, let's look at the intelligence of the body, okay? You need 5 things in order to have life and exist here. Number 1, you got to assimilate nutrients. That means you got to take the proteins, make into amino acids, fats to fatty acids, carbohydrates to usable sugars. You got to excrete the waste. And that waste is the byproducts, but also the cellular byproducts, because you're full of around 70 trillion cells, and about 1 billion of those are destroyed every day, and about 1 billion are built every day. Growth. They used to think that the nucleus was the gonads of the cell. They realize now that it's the cell wall, okay? But it's the nucleus that is the blueprint. Now, you're going to grow up till what that blueprint says. Now, when you get to the maximum growth potential of your body, you're going to just slowly remodel it, and this is one of the things that I want some of the doctors to really listen to, because a lot of them don't know that cartilage is alive and that meniscus regenerate. And so when you understand, you say, look, do you have dead tissue or living tissue in the body? Okay, so walk them through it slow, because all living tissue has to go through this process. Reproduction. Your body is a tissue producing machine. And this is where most of these lack of eases, called diseases, are actually a tissue production problem. Skin's 28 days old. Blood is 120 days old. So you might say there's an intelligence in the body. And then adaptations. Your body has to adapt. And I'm not just talking about the insane society that we're living in where you have to adapt to authoritarian rule. No, I'm talking your body's got to adapt to cold. You got to adapt to abundance. You got to adapt to challenges, to lack, to everything, to heat, to cold. And all of these stimuli allow your body to reproduce and function correctly. So if you have these 5 things, it's literally life. But this is every cell in the body has to take in nutrients, produce proteins, eliminate waste products. And that's 70 trillion times. Now, the automatic nervous system, and the nervous system controls and coordinates every function in your body. Wait, does that mean that the nervous system controls and coordinates digestion? Yeah? Does it control pulmonary function, endocrine function? Does it control musculoskeletal function? Yeah, everything. So when people say, look, what do I do for this muscle spasm? Well, find out why it's in spasm. Because muscles don't just react on their own. Whoa. You understand how stupid that is? Okay. So this automatic nervous system, okay, it's got 2 parts. One part keeps you alive under stress. And when you're in a stress state or a sympathetic dominant state, the heart rate elevates, blood supply to the gut is shut down because that's metabolically expensive. Your liver starts breaking glycogen out of glucose. Blood pressure, heart rate go up, cholesterol goes up. And so this is all an adaptation to stress. And that is normal. That's how your body functions. The other part, the rest, digest, and repair, the parasympathetic, is located in the neck and the pelvis area. Now, this is responsible for breakdown of tissue, buildup of tissue. It's amazing. Immune system is function. This is why if you are in a certain stage of life and a certain sex, when you're going to bed at night, okay, if you develop night sweats, have you ever heard of that? That's because you're in a parasympathetic dominant state and your body is going to start to increase the immune system function. I mean, it's brilliant. So the system is intelligent. Okay, there's always a feedback loop, and the safety pin cycle is the best way to describe it, that you get information coming in. So what puts your body in a stress state? What's put your body in a healthy state? Okay, or a parasympathetic or sympathetic state. One, it's your perception of the environment. It's your perception. But your body's going to respond correctly based on that perception. So like if I show you a picture of a puppy dog and you were scared by a dog once, you'd be stressed. And if you loved a dog once, you'd be happy. Okay, so that's going to stimulate the sympathetic or parasympathetic. But it all depends on a healthy feedback loop where the body is communicating to the brain does its physiologic connection to the body, and you get that feedback loop. Now, have you ever seen a reflex check? Yeah, we do this all the time. Okay. Now, normally, you would have a little response like that. It's called a deep tendon response. However, if you break that connection, like the safety pin, like you're opening up a safety pin, you break that communication from the body to the brain. Guess what happens in brain damage people or spinal cord injury people? You get a thing called clonus, where it just starts going back and forth. It doesn't stop. It's a trip because it's kind of like the exact opposite. But that central nervous system inhibits those type of reactions, but it works on everything. It's a feedback loop. And so what chiropractic does, and what the real new healthcare does, is you release that imprisoned impulse. You change that brain's communication to the tissue. Now, there's an x-ray over there on the bottom right. You're going to look, there's multiple traumas that this person's been through. Do you think they have a clear connection with the brain to the body? No. And there's physical stress, there's chemical stress, there's emotional stress, all that can be impinging that brain's communication to the tissue cell. Now, are you curious? Anybody want to know how stress kills? Because is the body smart or is the body smart? I actually had a doc in the audience one day and said, said, well, no, the body sometimes will just elevate cholesterol levels. Really? What's that from, doc? We just don't know. No, you don't know. You never studied anatomy. Okay, so now anybody seen like the movies? Okay, like when somebody gets a heart attack, what happens? Their left jaw, left arm, left everything, and then, okay. That's because the diaphragm is connected to the trapezius from, the embryologic origin. Okay, so you get the sperm hitting the egg, mulberry blast, it splits into a trilaminar disc, and that's why you get that referral. Okay, the gallbladder and liver refer to the right trap. So when you're in real doctor school, you got to differentiate between a spasm right trap from, being single, or okay, or I'm the only one that got that. Okay, nobody in here was ever a teenager. Okay, so the right spasm trap, okay, from either a gallbladder issue or liver issue, as opposed to something else. So now let's see if there's an off button. Now you're looking at two people up here. The one on the left-hand side up there, you're going to see that there's a heck of a deviation, okay, in the top of the thorax. Now, those are the nerve supplies to the heart. Now, what happens is the liver, under physical, chemical, or emotional stress, has to process the stress hormones, because stress hormones don't have an off button. They're working until they're used up. So this means that epinephrine, norepinephrine, the cortisol, all of that stuff. So the liver works harder and harder and harder. And if you ever get gallstones and you slice them up, you're going to see that they're actually, the majority of them consist of stress hormones. Okay, so this means the trap is also going to work harder and harder. Now, the apex or the center of that trap, the right trapezius, is on T1 through T4. That's the joints up there. Now, T1 through T4 is right here. Now, that's the sympathetic nerve supply to the heart. So now, when the body is under physical, chemical, or emotional stress, that right trap increases its tone, and we see a right rotation there. This is why we see a lot of cardiac arrhythmias, heart palpitations, and things when we see a structural deviation at T1 through T4. Does that make sense? So here's the scenario. Now, physical, chemical, emotional stress increases the tone of that, increases the tone. Eventually, the torture of your job, the prison camp, the politics, the CNN, whatever, okay, it becomes so much that eventually those bones get curled over so far that it fires the sympathetic charge down to the heart, putting the heart in ventricular fibrillation, stopping the heart. So when we see a rotation in the upper thoracic area, that's dangerous. When we see it in the central location, that's a normal position. Does that make sense? So there is an intelligent response. So when some people say, well, what about heart attacks? Okay, what about clogged arteries? Well, let's look at this. Is that an adaptation to stress? So there is an inborn intelligence in your body. If you've ever seen a live blood cell analysis, you'll see tons of cellular activity on the smallest drop of blood. You're going to see macrophages, neutrophils, engulfing pathogens and destroying them right there before your eyes. And this is happening 6 million times in your body. A little bit more than that because there's 6 million red blood cells. Now, the body is self-healing and self-regulating. There isn't a doctor on the planet that can heal a wound. Now, they can approximate the tissue, they can sew it up, they can adjust, they can do anything, and then you got to let the body heal. Does that make sense? Now, 97% to 99% of all disease are not diseases. They're really an adaptation to stress. And we're going to cover that in a lot, but 3% can be genetic anomalies, like nutrient deficiencies in the mom, hereditary factors based on genetic expression, not genetics. So if somebody says, well, it runs in your family. No, really? Can you name 3 relatives that don't have that? Okay, so it really has to do with genetic and genetic expression. But you perceive your world, you live your life through the nervous system. Now, in 1927, and this is the 33 principles of chiropractic, now the principles, they're worded different because back then they were just discovering an autonomic nervous system, the neurotransmitters. They were not understanding the gut-brain connection yet. So they talked more eloquently. Now, on the major premise is universal intelligence is in all matter and continually gives to it all properties and actions, thus maintaining its existence. Now, the next one, if you think of this, universal intelligence, and one of my instructors, Dr. Jacobson, he says, does a rock have intelligence? And, right then, I know you're thinking he's probably senile. No, he's freaking brilliant, because that rock is literally composed of little tiny molecules and atoms that are vibrating and they have a connection. Now, if you have sandstone, you can break it pretty easy. The connection's not that strong, not a good strong bond. You got granite, you're not going to be breaking that easy. Does it have mass? Yeah. Does it have weight? Does it actually have an energetic aspect to it? Absolutely it does. Everything does. So when the Native Americans talk about how our world is alive, everything's alive, and you got to treat it with respect, it makes sense. There's a truism to that. Chiropractic meaning of life. The expression of this intelligence through matter is the chiropractic meaning of life. The union of intelligence and matter. Life is necessary for the union of intelligence and matter. Now, why would that? Intelligence and matter. Now, one of the founders said, people are confused. Doctors are confused. They think that eyes see, ears hear, stomachs digest. Do they? Dead people have those, but they're not working. So is it really the organ? What's the difference between somebody that does not have the life force and somebody that does have the life force? Now, they've tried to measure it. They've tried to weigh it. And since modern science is based on toxic chemicals given to your body to alter physiology, they're not going to really look at it. We can actually see a life force energy in the dark field microscopy, but the triune of life, intelligent force and matter, intelligence, that when you put energy into that cell, it knows what to do. It knows to break down nutrients. It knows when you smell something, your stomach is going to produce a specific acid for whatever you smell. I know at first you think a wet, drippy thing over the mouth is probably not a good idea. Wow. Tough crowd, man. No, you need to smell stuff so your stomach knows what to produce. Okay? I mean, it's a brilliant design. In order to have 100% life, there must be 100% intelligence, 100% force, and 100% matter. And that's what we do. We release that imprisoned impulse, that life force, to restore that flow of intelligence. There's no process that does not require time. And that is true. Your body needs a chance to heal. And the amount of intelligence for any given amount of matter is 100%. And it's always proportional to its requirements. That means that your body is going to respond correctly based on the stimuli. So when somebody comes in and they say, man, I got high blood pressure, and I'll say, yeah, your body's responding correctly. Let's find out what it is. When was the last time you had a glass of water? Well, yesterday. I just don't like water. Okay, your blood's probably thick, and it's probably got to increase the blood flow to the lungs or something. Okay, so let's find out, because the body is responding correctly 100% of the time. Oh, and low functioning thyroid. Your body is responding correctly 100% of the time. Inflammatory bowel disease. 100% of the time it's responding correctly. There's nothing defective on this. So when you look at the delusion of diagnosis, what most people are going through, what's broken in your body that causes it to not regulate yourself? Anyone? Anyone? Okay, do you check blood pressure on your puppy dog, your cat, or your fish? No. How about your horse? Maybe, if it's a racehorse, I don't know. Okay, but animals are self-regulating, so you've been taught a lie. Blood pressure is going to go up based on physical, chemical, or emotional stress. Dehydration, that's a chemical stressor. Inflammatory bowel or irritable bowel syndrome. Do you think that if a herd of caribou had inflammatory bowel syndrome that we'd be running up there with antibiotics and steroids? Or do you think maybe we'd look at their environment to say they're not eating stuff that's healthy? Fibromyalgia. Is that a disease? What does fibromyalgia look like outside of the body? Or is it really an adaptation? Okay, breast cancer. Okay, is it bad luck, bad genes? I mean, and you realize that these right here The cause, if you go to the medical deities, they don't know. We don't know the cause. You know, it's sacrifice a virgin so the crops get better. Okay, ADHD. Okay, you're not looking at attention deficit hyperactivity disorder has a dysfunction of the frontal lobe, which is controlled by the cerebellum, and that cerebellum is controlled by the input from the spine and nervous system. Nobody's looking at that. So when a kid comes in, I just had a kid yesterday. Okay, 9-year-old kid, sweet kid. Okay, he had some damage from some things. Like that? Okay, Okay. And he was misdiagnosed with attention deficit disorder. And I said, buddy, and he's always, moving, kind of getting the shaking thing. And I said, does your mom force you to play video games? Does she say, get your ass in that room and play more video games? Okay. And he's smiling and giggling. He's, no, I could play them for hours. I said, you don't have a deficit of attention. Okay. You got laser beam focus, buddy. You just don't want to pay attention to stuff that you don't find important. And he says, yeah. I said, I'm going to show you how that works. Menstrual cycles. Do you think that's from lack of a birth control? Multiple sclerosis. What is that? 80 to 90% of MS is remitting and relapsing. So can it be a demyelinating nerve when the nerves just all of a sudden remyelate? ED, because you can't say erectile dysfunction. Do you think that might be a problem with the pelvic area or the nerves that supply it or the blood that supplies it or something? Okay? So this is the system. This is 19th century thinking. It's not 21st century. This is foolishness. You've got the endocrinologist looking at possibly a stress response. You've got the hematologist wondering why the blood has increased viscosity, not talking to the nephrologist who's looking at the kidney damage caused by the blood pressure drugs. Okay, not talking to the neurologist who's isn't going to talk to the gastroenterologist where neurotransmitters are produced. You understand? It's a totally, completely dysfunctional system. When people say, they're telling me about, well, my doctor says this, my doctor says this. And I said, do you know what my cardiologist says? And they'll look at me and they'll go, no. I said, why would I have a cardiologist? They're not going to look at the nervous system. They're not going to look at my gut. They're not going to look at my blood supply. They're not going to look at my stress level. Jesus, just talking about it elevates it. Okay, so let's look at crazy, but let's look at the intelligence of the body. This innate intelligence. Now, here's the body that I showed you before. Now, this gal is taking 8 prescriptions every day. Now, does anybody know what levothyroxine does with hydrochlorothiazide, does with an antidepressant, does anybody know what those drug interactions do? Nobody knows. It's complete, it's a crapshoot. So now, she's taken 2 for thyroid. Of course, the thyroid's going to be low if there's an inflammatory process and healing going on. Hydrocodone, that's only a little bit addictive. Hydromorphone, that's a little bit more addictive. But both those cause chronic constipation. Now, this is 80% of the immune system here. It's also where neurotransmitters are produced. So what are you going to get if you're given 2 drugs that cause constipation? You're right, 2 drugs that will solve it. Good job. Okay, so we got stool softener and azimita for chronic constipation. And then you get some bioidentical hormones because obviously, knowing that they're stressed, they're not going to have good levels. And then has needed. This is foolishness. To treat a human being that's self-adaptive, self-regulating, and self-healing with a chemical that causes a myriad of side effects. The entire system is based on abnormal parameters. They're trained by the pharmaceutical industry to look for symptom drug, symptom drug, symptom drug. Okay, and 100% of people, if you're talking to them right now, if they're sitting right next to you and you got that irritating husband and wife going, see, honey, see, I told you. Okay, ask them. Okay, you're taking 19 different medications. If you were left on a deserted island and you only had fresh fruit, fresh vegetables, fresh fish, fresh water, and you had no access to pharmaceuticals, none whatsoever, would your health improve or decline? What do 100% of the people say? They say it will improve. And I've had the worst I've ever seen is 32 prescriptions. That's like mind blowing. So think of that. We know innately that innate intelligence, that by God, all we got to do is give our body the right nutrients. We got to deal with the physical, chemical, emotional stress, and your body will recover. Why? Because you're a self-healing, self-regulating. Let's look at this. Adaptation. Here's a tumor behind the sternum. Okay, now this gal had a lot of chronic toxic environmental exposure. What you're seeing on the thermography, inflamed liver. Why? Because the liver is an enzyme factory. And if you're taking in a myriad of chemicals, your body is going to start to process them. Now, did the granuloma that formed, that little tumor behind the sternum, is that a problem, or did the body form it? Was that from a massive toxic environmental exposure where she was living? Absolutely it was. Man, when you look at 500 miles either side of the Mississippi, you're looking at glyphosate exposure, you're looking at toxic everywhere. Here's another one, reverse discs. Now, this is an area of the spine where you're looking right at the bottom, from here down, okay, and the sacrum. Now, these discs, since we have a curve, they should be narrow at the back, wide at the front. Now, if you reverse these discs, that's going to shove that disc material up against the nerve. Now, the nerves that come out of the low back, and you can see that picture there, supply the whole pelvic organs. I mean, when you see those beautiful commercials, hey, now I have Depends that's really form-fitting. Nobody knows. I can go out in public and everyone is, you understand? And I'm going, my God, this is a society, and this is like 40, 50, 60-year-old people. Okay, has anyone looked at the bowel dysfunction there? Now you'll see before and after on this, and it's hard to see the normal up there. It'll be easier to see when you're on Facebook and YouTube. But you're looking at reverse discs and then normalized discs. Now, if you compromise, I don't want to go too fast. You compromise the nerve to an area. Will that area function correctly, knowing that the nervous system controls and coordinates everything? No. You've got a branch with a fruit on the end, and you cut off the juice going to that fruit. Will the fruit be healthy? No. So when you're looking at pelvic dysfunction, shouldn't you look at the nerve supply that supplies that pelvic floor? Yes or yes? I mean, we're just talking common sense here. Okay, so the same thing. Erectile dysfunction, pelvic floor dysfunction, bowel and bladder control issues, and look at all the studies on bedwetting, on bowel and bladder control. I mean, stress incontinence. Okay, it all has to do with that brain's communication. Every one of those organs have to communicate up that spinal cord to that brain. That is how the body works. Here's a gal with 2 swollen discs on the bottom, 2 double discs swollen on the bottom, and you're talking miserable. Okay, that's her afterwards. You've got the reverse disc and then you got the normal discs. Okay, hugely important. Now, could this be difficult menstrual cycles? If you've got compromised nerve supply to that area over years, okay, is that going to cause maybe fibroid formation? Maybe, if there's toxic in endogenous estrogens, like they're getting plastics, they're drinking out of plastic, they're getting the new car smell, they're doing shampoos, they're doing toxic products on their nails. Okay, is the body going to wall off tumors? Yeah. We just had a patient with polycystic ovary syndrome. And I said, you got to stop eating fast food. And she goes like, okay, yeah. Because what's the only kind of restaurant that's open if you're non-vaccinated and you happen to be in New York? Okay, you got to get fast food. Why not? But I mean, you're talking hormones that they give the animals are going to equate to abnormal function in your body. Lupus, that big old black area and that big x-ray in the middle, that's what a leaky gut looks like. Now, when you're looking at the gut, you're talking 80% of the immune system's there. You're talking this is where neurotransmitters are produced, 80 to 90% inside of there. And you're looking at a loss of curve in the neck. That's the top one. The bottom one is the curve coming back. And the lupus goes away because you're not treating the symptoms. I want to make clear of this. You're not treating the symptoms. When you're working with the innate intelligence, you don't diagnose, you assess and correct the vertebral subluxation. You're not, because why? You got 10 people with lupus. Do they all have the same physical stress history? No. This one's a gymnast. This one was, a cheerleader. No. Okay, so you got to assess them individually. If you got 10 people with fibromyalgia, no, you got to assess them individually. The delusion of diagnosis is that you can give one diagnosis and then one drug to everyone. And that won't work because you got to give 2 drugs to everyone. Then you get to 19 drugs and the person is poisoned, but you're not addressing it. You do not treat the lupus. You treat the underlying cause of the lupus, which is the physical, chemical, and emotional stress. These are adaptations. They are adaptations. Now, reproduction. Here you go, an 80-year-old gal with omeprazole. Now, this is a proton pump inhibitor, something that decreases the acid in your stomach. Now, reflux doesn't come from too much acid. Reflux comes from too little acid. Too little acid means the muscle on top of the stomach isn't going to work. Okay, now that's hugely important because if the stomach starts sloshing around, you get the acid going up into the esophagus and you get that burning, that burning feeling. Now, if you're taking this, read the label. Okay, you're reducing the acid, you reduce the mineral absorption. This causes cardiac arrhythmias. Okay, yeah, I'm not getting the reflux, but now my heart's not working right. Okay, that's foolishness. Is anyone suffering from a lack of proton pump inhibitors? No, that's foolishness. But if you look at the body as intelligent, now you can see her x-ray on the side. Is that a physical stressor? Yes or yes? Absolutely. Now, chemical stressor is going to be either poor diet, past medications, or surgeries. Okay, poor sleep patterns is a chemical stressor. You got to address that. Is there an emotional component? Hell yeah. She's 80 years old, okay, and she's not healthy. I've got a buddy that climbs his mast and he's 91 years old, and it's a wooden mast. He's got to sand it and paint it every year a couple times. Okay, so this is, when you're 80 years old, you got grandkids you want to play with. You want to be healthy. You want to go out there playing pickleball. Breast cancer. 85% of breast cancers are on the left side. Is that bad luck, bad genes, or an adaptation? Why is it on the left side? Well, lymph drainage for the whole gut drains the upper left quadrant. Why are 15% of breast cancers on the right side? Well, lymph drainage for the dental toxicities and pulmonary go to the right side. So 85 and 15%. Is this an adaptation to toxic environmental exposure? Did the body create the tumors? Yes or yes? And I know there's people banging their heads saying, no, it's from my family. I didn't earn it. I was a vegan and I ate the vegan meal of Twinkies and Diet Coke. Okay. It's vegan. Don't give me shit. Okay. You understand? You got to do some research. Was there a trauma like this gal? You're talking loss of curve in the neck, forward head carriage. There's a lateral deviation. You can see a right rotation on that thoracic area. So what does that equate to? That's going to be heart palpitations. Look at the weight distribution. That's belly, seat, and thighs. That's cortisol. Just looking at this, like if you were a tracker tracking a deer in the woods, you'd say, wow, cortisol long-term mediated. We're talking high stress, right rotation in the upper thoracic area. And you're just looking at this stuff. Then you're seeing forward head carriage. And you know the diaphragm, the nerve of the diaphragm comes out of here. So are they able to alkalinize? Look at that. That's carbon dioxide going out. Oh, I got an idea. Let me cover it. What shit? Carbon dioxide didn't go out, did it? Okay, so that's going to also increase the acidity. But, we're living in crazy world. High blood pressure, knee pain, headaches, anxiety. Okay, now, are those problems or are those adaptations? We've got before and after. 3 things you've got to fix on human beings: the physical stress, the chemical stress, the emotional stress. But the number one thing you got to do before you fix that is fix the mind. The body is responding correctly based on the stimuli. You have this life force inside of you that flows from the brain down and animates and gives tissue life. This life force is an innate inborn intelligence. Your body is responding correctly based on the stimuli. If your stimuli is multiple medications, multiple injections, toxic food that your grandparents wouldn't even friggin' recognize, and you end up with anxiety, stress, bowel disorders, you end up with headaches, cancers, tumors, joint pain. Does anyone think joint pain is from lack of non-steroidal anti-inflammatories? Okay, you're just not getting enough adrenaline relief. No, that's foolishness, because what does those non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs do? They inhibit the building block of proteins, proteoglycan production. It increases heart attack risk. I mean, it's foolishness. Work with that intelligence. Understand your body is responding correctly based on the stimulus, correctly. And that's when people come, oh, I got Hashimoto's. Okay. What's the doctor say it's from? Oh, he doesn't know. Okay, good. What's the leading cause of Hashimoto's? It's unknown. We know that there's a bowel disorder causing undigested proteins to get in there. The body responds by making antibodies that negatively affects the thyroid. Rheumatoid arthritis. Is it really RA? You know what they have? She had joint pain and a positive RA factor on a blood test. 3 weeks later, she had no more joint pain and a negative RA test. So how does that work? Did we fix the rheumatoid arthritis? No. Honestly, I rarely see it, except in joints that have been injected with the cortisol, which destroys the joints. Okay, it's supposed to be symmetrical. I rarely see it symmetrical. And these people, if they're not getting shots of cortisone in the joints, which destroy the joint cartilage, okay, you don't address the joint pain. You fix what's wrong, and the body will fix itself. Is that too complicated? Your body is intelligent. It gives symptoms for a reason. You have a life force energy. You are made in the image and likeness of God. The founders of our country said, look, man, you guys are even given inalienable rights given to you by God, your creator, that can't be separated from you, so governments can't even control you. This is how cool you are. You've been taught that you're defective, that it runs in the family, and you need drugs in order to survive. So what's wrong with you? Well, my doctor says. Okay, do you know how many times, and it's wrong to slap people, okay? But I don't want to hear what your doctor says. I don't respect his protocols. He's trained by criminals. I mean, the pharmaceutical industry is literally proven criminals. They're felons, okay? And they're teaching you through this medical college that these toxic chemicals are the only thing that you can do for modern medicine, okay, instead of respecting that the body is responding intelligently. Does that make sense? So it's time to change. We got the allopathic model, and this is how beliefs change, all change. You have hopes and dreams and everything, and then your dreams are dashed because you find out that you don't need to sacrifice a virgin to get good crops, okay? That putting the faith in all of these medications, that gal I put with the 19 medications, do you think she's real healthy? I know, 20 would make her healthy. I know. God, there's so many sarcastic people here. And that I'm going to have a problem with. Can you imagine having this talk in Thailand? Okay, well, I know, sarcasm I don't think I'll play. But when you're looking at this, you lose faith. So how about developing a new idea? You know, that your body gives symptoms for a reason. Okay, the joint pain is there because possibly you got compromised nerve supply or you're not sleeping. Your body is adapting to this. Does that make sense? Yeah, we're going to change it. Now, this gal came in, that little kid's around 10 years old now. She came in a few years ago with a tumor the size of a grapefruit and a 3-month-old fetus. And her sister brought her in and said, you know, I got a tumor and a 3-month-old fetus that they want me to abort because they say that the kid won't be born healthy. And if they remove the tumor, then the kid's going to be born defective, okay? And so she wanted option 3. She wanted to have the kid, okay? Now, her sister brought her in because her sister had some positive results. And she says, look, I don't need a chiropractor. I got a tumor. And I said, look, you know, what we do, we can't take x-rays of you because you're pregnant. But we can assess you as best as we can. We can do nerve scans. We can do palpation. And I happen to have a diagnostic ultrasound machine. So, and I didn't know how to use it, but a buddy of mine did. And so, you know, I bartered care for him so we could look at it, and we checked it. Sure enough, there was a tumor there the size of grapefruit. And I said, look, the body formed it. The body can eliminate it. So let's give it a shot. And so we adjusted her in the thorax, got the pancreas working correctly. The kidneys, the adrenal glands are the pharmacy of the body. Got her out of stress. And it was interesting because 3 days into this, okay, her symptoms that caused her to go to the doctor about the weird pain, the pain was gone. and she started to sleep through the night. Then we got her neck working better. Now you're looking here, these are the x-rays that we took when the kid came out. Okay, but that's a reverse curve in the neck. That's pretty bad. Okay, that means she tore a ligament years earlier. That's a lateral deviation in the lumbar, which means her body was under extreme stress. But at about 6 months, we did another ultrasound and found out that that tumor went from a grapefruit down to about a lemon. And then we did one more at about 8 months, and it was down to about a lime. When the kid came out, there wasn't any tumor. Okay, because we didn't do it. The chiropractors didn't do it. But when you release that force, the body that formed the tumor can heal the tumor. The power that made the body literally heals the body. And there is this life force entity. Any doctor that doesn't understand that there's this life force, this undying energy, this universal intelligence in the body, and they're working with that intelligence instead of in their arrogance and ignorance, they give you a toxic chemical to alter your physiology without looking at why your body's responding. That's crazy. That's the system we got to change. Okay, we're also going to change the government too, but we're going to change that system. Okay? So when I put this up, and I put this up at the end of everything, this is true. You live your life through your nervous system. If that's impinged, you're not going to adapt well. You have to exercise and move your body every day because that communicates to the brain. If you're eating stuff that your grandparents wouldn't recognize and your body is forming multiple tumors on the ovaries, that's called polycystic ovary syndrome. Guess what? You can't eat toxic food. Sufficient rest. This means you're not taking sleeping pills at night to sleep. That's toxic, chemically induced sleep. You're not going to regenerate. And prayer and meditation. Every day, if you pray and meditate, guess what happens, man? You get that parasympathetic working and your body recovers better. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, we're going to get into an area where the Ministry of Truth will not like this. We're going to go over, and this is like every talk I've ever done. It's all the body is responding correctly based on the stimuli. We just got to find the stimulus, release the imprisoned impulse, and the body will heal itself. Okay, how many times? You know, it's and this is what I tell patients. It's not faith, because people will say, "Oh gosh, doc, you give me hope." I say, "No, man, throw hope in the trash can. This shit's guaranteed." If I drop this pen or let go of this pen, how many times will it fall down? What? I'm waiting for it to fall up, or at least sideways. No, your body is designed to adapt on this planet. Now, if you've reached a toxic level that your body can't produce cells, totally understand. Okay? But let's get to you earlier. And when parents say, well, when should they get their kids checked? I'll say, well, you can check them now or wait till they get sick as hell, then bring them in. Oh, you're right. Okay, we should check them before they get sick. Okay, God, some people. Okay. God bless you. Take care of yourself. We're going to get into the scary parts now of where the government doesn't feel that you should be exposed to this information. I think that you are smart enough to think for yourselves. But, so God bless you. I'll see you next week. And in 2 weeks, I'm probably going to be broadcasting from Thailand. Hopefully I make it. Thank you very much.